A woman named Louise gives birth to an invisible boy named Angel. She decides to keep him from the public so that he doesn't become a subject for experiments. However, her plan goes under threat when Angel suddenly sees a girl staring at him through the window in his room. A few months earlier, Louise becomes an assistant to a popular magician whose main act is to disappear. As they perform together, she gets attracted to him and eventually falls in love with him. He also likes her, and even during some of their performances, they kiss on stage. One day, while at work, the magician does his disappearing act on stage and the crowd cheers. However, just as Louise expects him to return, it turns out that the magician has actually disappeared for real. She immediately looks shocked and tries to look around for him, but he's nowhere to be found. Following this, Louise gets depressed as she can't believe the magician is gone. As she keeps hoping for him to come back, her situation gets worse, and she's eventually admitted to a psychiatric asylum. There, Louise remains hopeful of seeing her boyfriend again, but as the days pass, she gets disappointed and keeps losing her mind. Days later, she discovers that she's pregnant, but she doesn't inform any of the officials at the asylum. She even hides the pregnancy from them because she doesn't want them to do anything to her. 9 months later, Louise gives birth to a boy, but it turns out he's invisible. Despite this, Louise takes care of him and calls him her angel. She eventually makes this his name, and as he grows older, she teaches him how to eat and write. The asylum officials are not aware of this because the baby is invisible, and Louise also makes sure to prevent them from knowing anything about Angel. One night before they go to bed, Louise tells Angel a story about how her family used to travel to a cabin for the holidays. She tells him that the cabin is surrounded by trees, and at the back, there's a lake. She mentions that when she was younger, she used to sneak out at night so she could swim in the lake. Angel asks what it's like to swim, and she says it's a wonderful experience. She also explains it to him, saying he'll have to pretend to use his hands as if he's flying. Days later, Louise decides to surprise Angel for his birthday. Because she can't get a cake for him at the asylum, she improvises with slices of bread and wraps of paper, which she uses as candles. She looks excited as she presents it to Angel, who doesn't seem to care that he's not getting a proper cake. Days later, Angel looks out the window and sees a young girl with her family in a house near the asylum. As he talks about how interesting it is to see other people, Louise tells him that he must never reveal himself to anyone. She says it's very risky because people will be scared of him and they might harm him. That night, while Louise is looking at herself in the mirror, Angel asks what it feels like to see herself, but she says she can't explain it. As he then asks her to tell him about the lake by the old cabin, she says she's tired. The following day, as Angel stares out of the window, he sees a girl named Meline standing in front of her house and staring at him through his window. He immediately moves away and alerts his mom that there's a girl staring at the window. However, Louise is too tired to even speak, so she doesn't answer him. Following this, Angel decides to explore what's outside the building. He waits until the nurses come in to check on his mom, and as they open the door, Angel heads out for the first time in his life. As he's walking around, he enjoys the scenery and also feels happy to be outside. After walking for a while, he sees Meline sitting on a swing. He says hello to her, and she then approaches him. She asks if he's new to the area, but he looks shocked that she's not scared of talking to him. He asks if she can see him, but she says she can't because she's blind. She, however, mentions that her other senses are heightened, and it's why she can feel him when he's around. She offers to shake him, and as she does, she feels his body and says he has delicate skin. Shortly after, Angel says he needs to leave before his mom gets worried. She asks if he'll come back because she'd like to be friends with him, and he says he'll try. With this, she returns to her swing and he walks back to the asylum. When he returns, he tells his mom about Meline, but she doesn't react. Angel then starts to wonder how things must be for Meline, who can only feel things but can't see them. The next day, he hangs out with her again, and as they talk, she asks if she can feel his face. As she does so, Angel tells Meline that she's beautiful. Shortly after, they decide to play hide and seek. Angel hides first, but Meline manages to find him. He sounds shocked by this, but she says she used his scent to trace him. After they're through with their game, Meline tells Angel to kiss her, and he does so. She also learns to feel his gaze and notice when he's looking directly at her. After a while, she tells him to describe how she looks, and he says every detail she needs to know. She then asks him what it feels like to look at himself in a mirror. Angel says it's hard to explain, and it's almost as if he's looking at someone else most of the time. After their time together, Angel heads home to meet Louise, who has now become very silent over the past few weeks. As the years pass, Angel and Meline grow older, but they still hang out together. Angel can now also read very well, so he often reads to his mom, while she still remains silent most of the time. One day, Angel and Meline take a walk together, but before they return home, rain starts falling. The two of them then enter the rain and seem to enjoy it. Days later, Meline tells Angel that she has found a doctor that wants to operate on her eyes. She adds that if it's successful, she'll finally be able to see him. Angel doesn't sound happy to hear this, and Meline notices it. He says it's because she'll be gone for a while, but she tells him not to worry because she'll be back in no time. She also adds that being with him is what has been giving her courage to think the operation on her eyes will be successful. She asks if he'll forget her, but Angel says he never will. She then tells him to always think of her, and he says he will. Before she leaves for her surgery in a week, Angel and Meline spend most of their time together. One day, Angel asks Meline if she'll still like him if she sees what he looks like. Meline says she has no reason not to like him. She adds that she already likes his scent, voice, and skin, so seeing his face will surely feel better. Before they head home that day, Meline says she loves Angel, and he says it back. The next day, as she's leaving for her surgery, she feels his gaze and waves at him. After she leaves, Angel feels really lonely and even cries in the rain that night. Days later, a nurse brings a letter to Louise, saying someone sent it to her. However, it turns out to be a letter from Meline to Angel. As he reads the letter, he realizes that Madeline's surgery has had some complications, and she won't be back as early as initially expected. Angel feels really disappointed by this, but he keeps hoping she'll be back soon. As more days pass, Angel gets incredibly lonely, but there's nothing he can do about it. One night, Louise finally speaks to him and says she doesn't know if he'll be able to cope without her. She also tells him about the old cabin again, though this time, she tells him where he can find it. She eventually says she wants to sleep, and Angel also joins her. The next morning, Angel picks out a red dress for his mom to wear that day. However, she never wakes up, and the nurses realize that she's dead. Angel is devastated by this, and he also has to leave the asylum. Following this, he goes to the lake his mom used to talk about, but a while later he leaves and heads to Madeline's house. He breaks in and decides to start living in the house until she returns. However, Angel waits for days, weeks, months, and even years, but Meline never shows up. A couple of years later, Meline returns to her childhood house as a fully grown woman. Angel sees her, but he refuses to let her know he's around because he's scared she might not like him now that she can see. However, Meline goes to the asylum to ask for him. She's informed that there's no record of him ever being there, and this leaves her confused. She also goes around the town to ask for him, but she remains unsuccessful in her search. Angel sees her doing all these, but he still doesn't show himself to her. Days later, Meline leaves a letter for Angel just by the place they used to play. In the letter, she tells him that she's been looking for him for a while. She also adds that she'd like to see him again. Angel reads this letter, but he still doesn't show himself to her because he's scared of how she might react to him being invisible. In the days that pass, Angel continues to spend time around Meline. Interestingly, she's able to feel his presence, but since there's no one in the room, she discards it as nothing. After a couple of days around her, Angel finally decides to write her a letter, saying he'll only show himself to her if she promises to close her eyes. He drops the letter at the place she dropped her own, and after a while, as she's walking around, she sees the letter and looks happy. She also doesn't mind closing her eyes, so she agrees to meet in the place he wrote in his letter. When she gets there, she closes her eyes, and Angel lets her know that he's around. She's happy with this, but her eyes remain closed as she fulfills her promise to him. Shortly after, he leads her back into the house. There, she tells him that his scent is now different. He then asks how she felt immediately she started seeing. Meline says that even though it felt strange at first, it eventually got better. She also tells him about the day she first saw herself in a mirror. After a while, Meline starts using a blindfold around him so she can continue to keep her promise. They also hang out and play in the garden like they used to do as kids. Shortly after, Angel says there's somewhere he'd like to take Meline. She agrees to follow him, and he then leads her down the road and to a bus stop where they enter a bus to his mom's cabin. When they get there, he takes her to sit by the lake. He also tells her to open her eyes to enjoy the view. After a while, she tells him to show himself because the lake is the perfect place to see him for the first time. However, Angel says he's not ready to reveal himself yet. As she asks when he'll do it, he says he'll reveal himself to her when they get home. That night, Angel places a blanket over his head and sits on the bed, after which Meline enters the room to finally see how he looks. As she then sits beside him, he asks if she would still like him if he had no color. Meline says she'll always like him regardless of how he looks. However, as she takes off the blanket, she realizes that Angel is invisible. She looks shocked and even moves back as he tries to touch her. Angel is disappointed by this, and he watches Meline leave the room to cry elsewhere. She eventually sleeps on the floor, but Angel covers her with a blanket and gives her a pillow. This wakes her up, and she then tells him that whenever she closes her eyes, she thinks of him as being visible. She adds that if she has to close her eyes forever, she'll do that. She then closes her eyes and sleeps again. When she wakes up, she realizes that Angel is no longer in the house because he doesn't respond to her as she calls him. She eventually finds a letter from him and sees that he has left her alone. In the letter, Angel says he knows she can't be happy with him. He also says that even though he loves her, he'll prefer to stay away from her so that she'll be happy. He adds that she needs to forget him. Meline cries as she reads this letter, but she's not ready to give up on her love for him. As she's about to leave the house in search of Angel, Meline figures out that the most likely place he'd go to is the lake. However, she doesn't know how to get there because she closed her eyes when he took her there. Following this, she decides to close her eyes and use her other senses to try to locate the lake. Luckily, she's able to go down the same road and also enter a bus going toward the lake. As she eventually gets down from the bus, she walks around and uses her other senses to find the lake. When she gets there, she tells Angel to come out because she's ready to love him, regardless of how he looks. While she's talking, Angel hides near the bushes and watches her as she says she knows he's around. Suddenly, she hears a splash nearby and realizes that he has fallen into the lake. Because he doesn't know how to swim, she immediately jumps inside and starts looking for him. It's not easy for her, but she's able to use her senses to find him and bring him out while he's unconscious. After doing rounds of CPR on him, Meline revives Angel and looks relieved to see that he survived. A while later, she tells him that she loves him, and he says it back. He then asks what's next for them, and she says that even though living with him will take some getting used to, she'll be happy to stay with him. Following this, they head home together. A while later, she gets him to start wearing bangles in the house so that she'll know when he's around. She also gets pregnant with his baby, and as she keeps looking for more ways to make him visible to her, she applies makeup on his face. Several months later, Meline gives birth to a baby girl, and as she grows slightly older, she decides to take a family photograph. As Meline then prepares the camera for the photograph, it turns out that she gave birth to a visible baby. A while later, she and Angel then start thinking of what to do to make a living. After careful consideration, they decide to start a magic show so they can make some money. Not long after, they become magicians and get very successful at it.